What if the story of humanity is incomplete? What if buried beneath shifting sands, deep ocean trenches, and forgotten jungles lies a hidden chapter of our past? A chapter filled not with myths or fantasies, but with truths we're only beginning to rediscover. Massive stone monuments too precise for primitive tools, ancient texts written in languages no one can read, maps that show Antarctica before it was covered in ice, and machines crafted over 2,000 years ago that mimic the gears of modern technology. We call them anomalies, outliers, coincidences. But what if they're not? What if they're clues? Clues left behind by advanced civilizations, long lost to cataclysm, war, or time itself. Clues that challenge everything we thought we knew about human history. This is not just a story of the past, it's a puzzle, a forbidden puzzle, whose pieces were scattered across the world, and whose solution may forever alter our understanding of who we are and where we come from. So ask yourself, are you ready to question the timeline? Because once you open this door, there's no going back. Let's begin. In the heart of the ancient world, nestled deep within Lebanon's Bekaa Valley, lies one of the greatest engineering enigmas of all time, Baalbek. To the casual visitor, it's a ruined Roman temple, once called Heliopolis, the city of the sun. But look closer, and you'll find something that has baffled historians, architects, and engineers for centuries. Beneath the Roman columns and ornate carvings resting at the foundation are three stone blocks so massive, so inexplicable, they seem to mock our understanding of ancient construction. The trilithon, as they are known, consists of three megalithic stones. Each one weighs between 800 to 1,000 tons. To put that into perspective, that's heavier than a fully loaded Boeing 747. Yet somehow these stones were cut, transported over uneven terrain, lifted several meters into the air, and set perfectly into place thousands of years ago. And no one knows how. There are no surviving records, no ancient manuals, no inscriptions carved into the stones explaining their purpose or method of placement. Mainstream historians credit the Romans, but even Roman engineers noted that these stones predated their structures. The Roman temple may have been built atop an even older platform, one whose creators vanished long before written history began. So who built it, and more importantly, how? No cranes, pulleys, or levers from the known ancient world could have handled such immense weight. No workforce, no matter how large, could have achieved this with brute strength alone, at least not without leaving evidence. Ramps, scaffolds, tools, we find none. Could they have known something we've forgotten? A lost technology, mastery of sound or vibration, anti-gravity, or simply a level of mechanical ingenuity we've yet to comprehend? Some theories suggest Baalbek was not just a religious site, but a power center, a landing pad for ancient craft, a remnant of a civilization erased by time, war, or cataclysm. Others believe the stones were never meant to be understood, that their size was intentional, a message left in silence, a monument not to gods, but to knowledge. And then there's the quarry. Just a short distance from the site lies the Stone of the Pregnant Woman, another monolith, partially cut, weighing over 1,200 tons, left untouched, abandoned, as if even the builders themselves had reached a limit or were stopped suddenly. It raises more questions than it answers. But one truth remains: Baalbek was not built by chance. It was engineered with intent, precision, and purpose by someone in a time we no longer understand. And so it stands, not just as a ruin of empire, but as a monument to the impossible, a whisper from the past, daring us to remember what we've forgotten. In 1929, rolled up in the archives of Istanbul's Topkapi Palace, an old parchment was rediscovered, a map drawn by an Ottoman admiral in 1513. Its details were extraordinary. It showed the coastlines of Europe, North Africa, and Brazil with shocking accuracy, centuries before satellite imaging. But that wasn't the part that shook historians. No, the real mystery was what it revealed further south. Antarctica. Not the Antarctica we know, frozen, lifeless, buried under miles of ice, but a version of it, ice-free, complete with accurate geographic features that match modern sonar scans of the continent's subglacial coastline. Let that sink in. In 1513, over 300 years before Antarctica was officially discovered and nearly 500 years before we could see beneath its ice, a map existed that depicted its true shape. How? The map was created by Piri Reis, a skilled navigator and cartographer in the Ottoman Navy. In the margin notes, he claims he compiled it using ancient source maps, some Greek, some even older. But what source could have possibly known the coastline of a continent that had been covered in ice for over 6,000 years? Modern geologists confirm that Antarctica has been frozen for millennia. That means if the Piri Reis Map is based on earlier maps, those maps must have been made by a civilization with global navigation ability, long before the rise of modern seafaring empires. That challenges everything we know. Some scholars dismiss it as coincidence or a misinterpretation, but others, more open-minded, see it differently. Could an ancient seafaring civilization have existed? One with knowledge of cartography, astronomy, and exploration that far exceeded what we associate with early humans? Some point to Atlantis, others to lost maritime cultures wiped out by global cataclysm. But regardless of theory, one thing is clear: the Piri Reis Map should not exist. Its precision, its content, and its sources all hint at a hidden chapter in our past, one quietly omitted from history books. It raises more than questions. It demands reconsideration. Because if one map survived, how many others were lost? And if knowledge of Antarctica once existed, who were the ones that knew it? High atop a barren hill in southeastern Turkey, something impossible was unearthed, something that shattered archaeology and forced us to rewrite history. Göbekli Tepe, a site so old it predates the invention of the wheel, so sophisticated it challenges our entire understanding of prehistoric man. Estimated to be over 12,000 years old. That's 7,000 years before the pyramids, and twice as old as Stonehenge, built not by farmers or city dwellers, but by hunter-gatherers. Think about that. Long before agriculture, long before cities, long before writing, our ancient ancestors erected massive stone pillars, some over 20 feet tall and weighing up to 20 tons, carved with detailed animal reliefs, abstract symbols, and humanoid figures, arranged in perfectly circular enclosures, aligned with celestial patterns. There are no signs of habitation, no homes, no tools, no burials, just temples, carved with purpose, then mysteriously buried under thousands of tons of earth. Who built this? Why did they build it, and why did they cover it up? Archaeologists believe the builders intentionally buried the site. But why would anyone hide something so monumental? Was it ritual? Was it protection? Or was it an attempt to preserve a memory after catastrophe? Some theorists suggest Göbekli Tepe was a sacred center, a site of spiritual initiation, astronomical alignment, or even contact with higher intelligences. Others go further. They propose it's the last remaining fingerprint of a lost civilization, one that possessed advanced knowledge long before history says it was possible. A people who survived a global disaster, perhaps the end of the last ice age, and sought to encode their wisdom in stone. Whatever the truth, one fact remains: Göbekli Tepe should not exist. By the standards of history, it's an anomaly. By the standards of archaeology, it's a revolution. Because if our ancestors could build this 12,000 years ago, then maybe they weren't as primitive as we thought. Maybe the story of human civilization doesn't start in Mesopotamia. Maybe it starts here, in the forgotten stones of Göbekli Tepe, where memory, myth, and mystery all begin. In the world of ancient mysteries, few are as quietly unnerving as this: a book with no known language, no known author, no confirmed origin, and no one, not even the world's best codebreakers, has ever been able to read it. They call it the Rohonc Codex. Found in Hungary in the early 1800s, it's a bound manuscript of 448 pages, each filled with symbols no one can recognize. Not Latin, not Greek, not Cyrillic, not Sanskrit. It uses an entirely unique script with over 700 distinct characters, far more than any known alphabet or syllabary. And then there are the illustrations, crude but deliberate, depicting battles, crucifixions, churches, temples, and rituals. Some show Christian crosses, others pagan symbols, and still others that don't belong to any known religion or belief system. The iconography spans multiple cultural influences: Byzantine, Hindu, even Middle Eastern. How could one book hold so many contradictions? Some believe it's an elaborate hoax, a fantasy language created by an eccentric mind in the 18th or 19th century. But that theory stumbles at the sheer consistency of the script, the grammar, the sentence flow. This isn't random. Someone meant to say something, and they were fluent in whatever language this is. Others suspect it's an encoded sacred text, a cipher masking forbidden knowledge, a gospel written for eyes that would only come much later or never. More radical thinkers suggest it's a relic of a forgotten civilization, one that didn't just lose its land, but its language, symbols, and memory. Wiped clean by time, with only this codex left behind as proof it ever existed. But perhaps the most haunting possibility? That the Rohonc Codex is not meant to be read by us, that it was a message, not across space, but across time. And without the key, without the context of the world that created it, its secrets remain sealed, like a voice from another age, speaking a language we've long since forgotten. So it sits, in silence, in the archives of the Hungarian Academy of Sciences, waiting, watching, and daring the world to remember a truth it's not yet ready to understand. For centuries, whispers of a colossal white pyramid hidden in the heart of China drifted through the accounts of explorers, pilots, and monks. But it wasn't until World War II that the legend took form. In 1945, U.S. Army Air Corps pilot James Gaussman was flying over the Shanxi province when something extraordinary caught his eye. A massive white pyramid, gleaming in the sunlight, towering above the landscape, far larger than anything he had ever seen in Egypt. He reported its shape was flawless. Its white casing stones shimmered with unnatural symmetry. And, most shocking of all, it appeared to be twice the height of the Great Pyramid of Giza. The world should have erupted with curiosity. But instead, silence. The Chinese government denied the pyramid's existence for decades. No official expeditions, no aerial documentation, no maps. It was as if the structure had been wiped from public record. But modern satellite imagery tells another story. Buried beneath thick vegetation and rolling hills around Xi'an, the ancient capital, there are dozens, perhaps hundreds of pyramid-like mounds, some small and forgotten, others immense, unnatural, mathematically aligned, and one stands apart. Locals call it the White Pyramid, covered in soil and trees, camouflaged by time, but still visible from above, silent, imposing, untouched. What lies inside? Chinese archaeologists claim many of these mounds are ancient imperial tombs, sealed and deliberately left undisturbed out of respect for the dead. But some of these structures are aligned to celestial constellations. Others match the cardinal directions with eerie precision, and none have been thoroughly excavated. Could these be burial sites for forgotten dynasties? Or are they something older, pre-dynastic, from a time before recorded Chinese history? Some researchers believe these pyramids hold secrets of lost knowledge, buried technologies, or even extraterrestrial influence, an idea echoed in ancient Chinese myths of sky gods and celestial rulers. Yet the greatest mystery isn't what we know, it's what we're not allowed to know. Why are these structures off limits to international research? Why the decades of secrecy? And why does the largest of them remain unacknowledged in China's official archaeological record? The White Pyramid of China isn't just a mystery. It's a forbidden puzzle, hidden in plain sight, protected not just by time, but by silence. Because sometimes what lies beneath the surface isn't just ancient, it's inconvenient. And it changes everything. In the quiet village of Xianbeikun in Zhejiang province, China, a farmer tried something simple. He wanted to drain a pond, but what he uncovered was anything but simple. Beneath the water's surface was a massive underground cavern, perfectly carved, symmetrical, covered in rows upon rows of chiseled marks like a signature left behind by an ancient hand. And then came the real shock. There wasn't just one cave, there were at least 24, all carved deep into solid sandstone, each one large enough to fit multiple modern houses, and each one completely man-made. No debris, no tools, no inscriptions, no records in any historical texts, not even a single mention in 2,000 years of Chinese documentation. It was as if they appeared overnight, fully formed, fully forgotten. How could something this monumental be unknown? These are not natural caverns. They were sculpted with mathematical precision, roofs supported by perfectly balanced stone pillars, walls covered in parallel striations, consistent down to the millimeter, as though shaped by a giant machine. But no machines existed. Not in ancient China, not in any civilization we know of. Estimates suggest that to carve out just one cave, workers would have had to remove more than 1,000 cubic meters of stone. Multiply that by 24, and the task becomes staggering. Where did all that stone go? How was it transported? And most haunting of all, why were they built at all? There are no signs of human habitation, no soot from torches, no bones, no artifacts, just empty halls, silent and precise. Some believe they were tombs, never completed. Others say they were military storage, although there are no defensive structures, no exits or signs of battle. And then there are those who think these were ritual spaces or archives, places to preserve knowledge from a time before history. Still others suggest a prehistoric civilization erased by cataclysm used advanced techniques we no longer understand. But perhaps the real question isn't how they were made. It's this: why did we forget them? Why is there no trace of a culture capable of creating such wonders? The Longyou caves stand as an architectural paradox, a testament to forgotten genius, a subterranean riddle that no one remembers writing, because sometimes the greatest mysteries are not buried in legend or myth, but in plain sight beneath our very feet. In the summer of 2018, as construction crews dug beneath the city streets of Alexandria, Egypt, something unexpected emerged from the sand. A massive black granite sarcophagus, unmarked, untouched, unopened. For over 2,000 years, it had remained sealed in the silence of history. It was the largest sarcophagus ever found in Alexandria, weighing nearly 30 tons, jet black, and eerily foreboding. And immediately, the rumors began. Was this the lost tomb of Alexander the Great? Could it contain a forgotten pharaoh? Or something far older, something that had been deliberately hidden from the world? The lid was fused tight. No inscriptions, no identifiers, nothing to reveal who or what lay inside. And as if pulled from the pages of a Hollywood script, people began to whisper of curses, of plagues, of ancient forces not meant to be disturbed. For weeks, the world waited as archaeologists prepared to open it, fearing what they might unleash. And then the lid was lifted. What they found shocked everyone, and no one. It wasn't a pharaoh, not Alexander, not a god. Inside were 3 decomposed skeletons, floating in red-brown liquid. Not golden treasures, not ancient scrolls, just bones and sewage, or so it seemed. Experts believe the bodies belonged to soldiers or nobles, buried hastily, their identities erased by time. The strange fluid? Possibly a mix of sewage and groundwater that seeped in over centuries. Unpleasant, unremarkable. Or was it? Because questions remain. Why was such an enormous and expensive sarcophagus used for an anonymous burial? Why no markings, when Egyptian traditions so heavily emphasized names, rituals, and identity in the afterlife? And why was it buried so deep, without any historical mention? Some believe the burial was deliberately hidden. Others suspect it wasn't Egyptian at all, but Hellenistic, perhaps even linked to secret cults or forbidden rites during the Ptolemaic era. A few fringe theorists even speculated the reddish liquid could be some kind of preservative, or worse, a ritual concoction. Scientists tested the fluid. No mystical properties, just decay. But that hasn't stopped the legends, because mystery doesn't always come with answers. Sometimes it comes with absence of names, of context, of meaning. The black sarcophagus of Alexandria may not have held a god, but it still holds a question. Why was it hidden? And perhaps more importantly, what else lies buried that we were never meant to find? It is the largest surviving medieval manuscript in the world, bound in animal skin, weighing over 165 pounds, over 3 feet long when opened, and written, if legend is to be believed, in a single night. They call it the Codex Gigas, but most know it by a far more ominous name, the Devil's Bible. Because in the very center of this ancient tome, on a page alone, in unnatural silence, is a full-page portrait of Satan himself, towering, crowned with horns, staring with empty eyes from a throne not made for men. No other religious manuscript in history dares such a thing. But the devil's image is only the beginning. The Codex contains the entire Latin Bible, medical treatise, exorcism rituals, magical formulas, even a complete list of sins and their corresponding penances. It is as if someone tried to collect all knowledge, sacred and forbidden, into one book. But the true mystery lies not in its content, but in how it was made. Monastic scribes of the 13th century took years, even decades, to complete a manuscript of this size. But the handwriting of the Codex Gigas is eerily uniform from beginning to end. No variation in style, no visible signs of aging or fatigue, as if it were written without pause. According to legend, a monk condemned to death for breaking his vows begged for mercy. He swore to complete the world's greatest manuscript in a single night to redeem his soul. But as midnight approached and the task proved impossible, he made a desperate pact. He sold his soul to the devil, and with the help of darkness, the Codex was completed. And so he painted the devil's image not as a warning, but as a signature. Of course, modern scholars dismiss this as myth, but strange coincidences remain. The book has been linked to plagues, fire, and misfortune throughout history. Every kingdom that owned it fell. Its last known home, the Royal Library of Sweden, burned in a mysterious fire, but the Codex survived untouched. Today it sits behind glass, locked in the National Library of Sweden, preserved but not explained. What drove a monk to create such a thing? Why preserve texts of healing next to spells of damnation? And why include Satan front and center? Without explanation? Was it madness, obsession, or a knowledge humanity was never meant to hold? The Devil's Bible isn't just a book. It's a question bound in leather and ink, and every time we read it, it reads us back. Long before the Maya, before the Aztecs, before any known civilization rose in the Americas, there were the Clovis people. For decades, archaeologists believed they were the first Americans, named after a site in Clovis, New Mexico. These ancient hunter-gatherers left behind distinct stone tools, Clovis points, sharp and deadly, found across North and Central America. Their legacy stretched from the Great Plains to the jungles of Panama. They were organized, skilled, and suddenly gone. Roughly 12,900 years ago, they vanished from the archaeological record. No gradual decline, no signs of war, just an eerie silence, like someone erased them from history. So what happened? One theory points to a climate catastrophe, a sudden return to ice age conditions in what's known as the Younger Dryas period. Temperatures plummeted, megafauna died off, and ecosystems collapsed. If the Clovis depended on large game like mammoths and mastodons, their food source may have vanished overnight. But there's another theory, one far more controversial. Some researchers believe Earth was struck by fragments of a comet or asteroid, unleashing apocalyptic wildfires and dust clouds that blocked out the sun. Supporters of this theory cite a layer of carbon-rich black soil found across North America, containing nanodiamonds, melt glass, and platinum, all signs of extreme heat. Could the Clovis people have been wiped out in a single cosmic event? And yet, the mystery deepens, because new evidence suggests the Clovis weren't the first Americans after all. Sites like Buttermilk Creek, Meadowcroft, and Monte Verde predate them by thousands of years. So were the Clovis part of a much larger, older story? Were they the survivors of an even earlier culture, one that passed down knowledge and tools? And if so, what happened to them all? There are no temples, no written language, no burials with names, only arrowheads scattered across a forgotten continent. Some say the Clovis didn't vanish, but migrated, blended, or evolved into other tribes. Others believe their story ended in fire, flood, or famine, another lost chapter in the fragile book of human history. But one thing is certain, the Clovis walked this land when glaciers still gripped the earth, when mammoths roamed the plains, when history was still being written in stone and bone, and then, just like that, they were gone. A civilization erased by time, leaving only questions behind. Scattered across the rainforests, valleys, and abandoned plantations of southern Costa Rica are hundreds of strange, silent relics. Perfect stone spheres, some small enough to hold in your hand, others so massive they weigh over 16 tons. Carved from solid granodiorite, a rock harder than granite, these spheres are so geometrically precise, they seem like the product of machines, and yet they were created over 1,500 years ago, or perhaps far earlier. Who made them? Why were they made? And how did an ancient people shape such massive stones into near-perfect orbs without metal tools, wheels, or written language? That's the mystery. Known locally as Las Bolas, these stone spheres have no inscriptions, no markings, no clear pattern of distribution. They've been found in riverbeds, in straight lines across fields, and even aligned in geometric formations with celestial precision. Some believe they were symbols of status, guardians of tribal authority. Others suggest they were astronomical markers used to track solstices and equinoxes. Still others whisper they were part of a lost city, an ancient capital swallowed by jungle and time. But here's the problem. We may never know, because many of the spheres were moved, destroyed, or stolen in the 20th century. When banana companies began developing plantations across southern Costa Rica, workers unearthed the stones and often dynamited them, hoping to find gold inside. What was lost may be irreplaceable. Modern archaeologists attribute the spheres to the Gigas culture, an indigenous civilization that flourished in the region before the Spanish arrived. But even that attribution leaves more questions than answers. There are no carvings of sphere making, no tools found near the sites, no myths or oral traditions that explain their purpose. It's as if their creators vanished, leaving only their stone legacy behind, perfect, mute, enduring. Some fringe theorists suggest these spheres are remnants of Atlantean technology, pre-flood artifacts, or even navigation markers for visitors from the stars. Mainstream science dismisses those claims, but science too must admit it doesn't know the answer. Why choose the perfect sphere? Why in such numbers? Why here, on the edge of the Pacific, in a land untouched by great empires? The stone spheres of Costa Rica defy explanation, not because they are strange, but because they are precise, deliberate, and completely silent. And in that silence, they speak louder than words. They tell us this, that somewhere in the green heart of the jungle, a people once shaped the unshapable and left behind a message we've yet to understand. Along the southeastern coast of India, where the waves of the Bay of Bengal crash against stone and time, lies the ancient town of Mahabalipuram. Here, carved into rock and memory, stand some of the most stunning temple structures in South Asia, ornate, weathered, and sacred. But for centuries, legends spoke of something more. Not one temple, not two, but seven. Seven pagodas, lining the ancient shore, shining like celestial palaces built by gods. Only one remains standing today, the Shore Temple. Its elegant spire still rises from the coast as if pointing towards something forgotten. The rest, swallowed by the sea. Local fishermen have passed the story down for generations, that a great city once stood here, an architectural wonder, until it was consumed by a great flood, vanishing into the depths almost overnight. For centuries, the legend was dismissed, a myth, a metaphor, a poetic exaggeration of time's erosion. Until 2004, when a massive tsunami struck India's east coast, the waters briefly receded before the deadly wave hit, exposing something astounding: submerged ruins. Massive stone blocks, carvings of elephants and warriors, foundations and steps leading nowhere. And then the sea returned, reclaiming its secret. Divers and archaeologists rushed in. Underwater surveys revealed multiple structures lying beneath the silt and surf, organized in layout clearly man-made. Columns, walls, platforms buried just offshore. Suddenly, legend was no longer just a story. Could the seven pagodas have been real? Historians now believe that Mahabalipuram may have once been a thriving port city, built by the Pallava dynasty, its temples stretching far along the coast. Perhaps not seven towers, but a sacred complex, carefully aligned to the stars, to gods, or to something greater. So what happened? Was it a tsunami, as local myths say? Or a rising sea level, like creeping over centuries, pulling these structures into the deep? And if a city could vanish here, its temples left beneath the tide, how many others lie hidden along the coastlines of our world? The story of the seven pagodas is not just one of architecture, but of memory. How water can erase what stone cannot. How myths can preserve truth when history forgets. And how the ocean still holds the chapters we've yet to read. Because sometimes legends are not just stories. Sometimes they're maps, leading us to the ruins of something far more ancient than we ever imagined. Thousands of years ago, the coastline of Europe looked very different. Where now the cold waves of the North Sea roll endlessly between Britain and mainland Europe, once lay a land of rivers, forests, and human life. A lost continent, a sunken world, a place modern scientists now call Doggerland. For centuries, it was dismissed as myth, Europe's Atlantis, a land of speculation, a poetic metaphor for things we'd never find. But then, from the sea, evidence began to rise. Fishermen dredging the seabed began pulling up more than fish. Ancient bones, tools, spears, mammoth tusks, even the remains of a prehistoric human. Geologists confirmed what few dared to imagine, that between 20,000 and 8,000 years ago, an entire landmass connected Britain to continental Europe, a vast plain of lakes, marshes, and hills. And on it, People lived, hunted, built, and thrived. Doggerland was real, and it was inhabited. Paleogeographic reconstructions show a region the size of modern-day Ireland, a land rich in game, fertile for foraging, crisscrossed by rivers and perhaps even early trade routes. But then it was gone. Slowly at first, as sea levels rose with the end of the last ice age, valleys filled, marshes became swamps, forests disappeared beneath the tide, and then, around 6200 BCE, disaster struck. A massive underwater landslide off the coast of Norway, known as the Storegga Slide, triggered a mega tsunami. Wall after wall of water surged across the North Sea, crashing into the low-lying lands of Doggerland. It was sudden, cataclysmic. Entire communities wiped away in a single day. A civilization drowned beneath the waves, without a written word left behind. And yet, Doggerland remains eerily preserved, buried beneath layers of silt and sediment, a frozen memory beneath the sea. Archaeologists have only begun to explore it through sonar imaging, seabed coring, and recovered artifacts. What lies beneath could hold the earliest stories of Northern Europe, the first temples, the first migrations, even the first myths of a flood passed down through oral traditions. Because perhaps long before Atlantis was spoken of in Greece, there was another land, one that truly did vanish beneath the ocean. Doggerland is no longer a mystery. It is a warning, a reminder that land is fragile, that civilizations are not guaranteed, that beneath the calm surface of the seas, our forgotten past still sleeps, waiting to be found or to be lost again. In 1957, on the windswept shores of Maine, a quiet archaeological dig was taking place at a Native American settlement known as the Goddard Site. Among pottery shards, stone tools, and traditional artifacts, one object surfaced that should not have been there. A single coin, dark, weathered, tiny, no larger than a fingernail, yet it would go on to shake the foundations of American history. Because this wasn't a colonial coin, not French, not Spanish, not British. It was a Viking coin, a silver Norwegian penny from the reign of King Olaf Kyrre, dated to around 1050 to 1080 AD. How did a 1,000-year-old Norse coin end up buried in Native American soil, miles inland, and centuries before Columbus ever crossed the Atlantic? No one had an answer. The site had no signs of Viking presence, no longhouses, no Norse tools, only indigenous artifacts typical of the region. The discovery sparked debate. Some scholars said the coin was brought through trade, passing from hand to hand across the continent, but others weren't so sure. What if the coin wasn't traded? What if it was carried directly? We know the Norse reached North America. At Longyou Meadows in Newfoundland, a confirmed Norse settlement dating to around 1000 AD was excavated. Proof that the Vikings had crossed the Atlantic 5 centuries before Columbus. But Newfoundland is still nearly 1,000 miles from where the main penny was found. So, did the Vikings travel deeper into North America than we ever imagined? Did they navigate rivers, explore inland territories, and leave behind traces long since buried? Or did indigenous peoples maintain complex trade routes reaching farther and faster than history has acknowledged? Then there's the unsettling third possibility, that we're missing entire chapters of transoceanic contact, that the timelines we've accepted, who discovered what and when, may be incomplete. Or worse, wrong. Some skeptics dismiss the coin as a hoax planted to stir controversy, but multiple investigations, including radiocarbon dating of the site layers, confirm its legitimacy. It was found in context, buried among authentic native artifacts, in undisturbed soil, not placed, not modern, real. And still, we're left with the question, who dropped it? A Viking explorer far from home, a native trader with a treasure from the edge of the world, or someone we've never written about because we never knew they existed? The main penny is more than a coin. It is a contradiction made of silver, a fragment of contact across oceans and cultures, left behind like a message in a bottle from the past. And it dares us to ask, how much of what we think we know is only the beginning? In the granite quarries of ancient Egypt, under the searing sun of Aswan, lies a monument not to what was built, but to what was left behind. A single stone, cracked, massive, still connected to the bedrock from which it was born. It is known as the unfinished obelisk, and it is one of the largest, most mysterious megaliths ever attempted by human hands. Had it been completed, it would have stood over 137 feet tall, nearly the height of a modern 12-story building. Its weight, estimated at 1,1200 tons, more than twice the size of any obelisk ever successfully raised in ancient Egypt. But it was never moved, never carved free, never stood tall in a temple or plaza. Instead, it rests in the same quarry where ancient workers first began shaping it, frozen in time, still fused to the earth. Why? A massive crack near its base made it unstable, and just like that, the project was abandoned. Tools were dropped, labor halted. The obelisk was left where it lay, as if the gods themselves had halted its rise. But it's what the obelisk reveals that makes it extraordinary. Along its surface, we find precise chisel marks, methodical and uniform. We see clear evidence of large-scale stone removal, indications of an organized workforce with a deep understanding of geometry, balance, and material science. But here's the puzzle. How did ancient Egyptians plan to move it? Even today, with cranes and industrial equipment, lifting a 1,200-ton object would be a monumental feat, risky, expensive, and complex. Yet over 3,000 years ago, someone had a method, a system, a vision. Were they planning to use wooden sledges and wet sand, as some theories suggest? Or did they possess lifting technologies now lost to history? Some fringe researchers go further. They point to the sheer size and precision of the obelisk and suggest it hints at forgotten engineering knowledge, or even tools powered by sound or frequency. Wild as that may sound, one thing is certain: the unfinished obelisk shows us the limits of ancient ambition, and in doing so, exposes the depths of their skill. It stands not as a failure, but as a frozen moment in time, a glimpse into the minds of a civilization that dared to do the impossible. And though it never rose above the horizon, it speaks louder than many monuments that did. Because in the silence of that quarry, carved into stone and shadow, the unfinished obelisk still asks us a question. What did the ancients know that we have forgotten? In 1952, buried deep within the caves of Qumran near the Dead Sea, archaeologists made a stunning discovery. Not parchment, not papyrus, but something entirely different. A scroll made of copper, cold, metallic, etched with strange characters unlike anything else found with the Dead Sea Scrolls. It wasn't religious, it wasn't poetic. It was a list of treasure. Over 60 locations, each one describing hidden stashes of gold, silver, and sacred objects allegedly buried beneath cisterns, behind walls, under steps and ruins. Some entries were precise. In the ruin that is in the valley of Achor, under the steps with the entrance at the east, a chest of silver and vessels, 17 talents in weight. In total, the scroll claims over 4,600 talents of precious metals, worth billions in today's value, are scattered across the Judean wilderness. It sounds like fiction, a myth, a biblical fantasy. But the copper scroll is real. And more than that, it's unique. It's the only known Dead Sea Scroll inscribed on metal meant to survive time, fire, decay. As if its author didn't want the message preserved, they wanted it found. So who wrote it? Some say the Essenes, the Jewish sect believed to have created the Dead Sea Scrolls, hid the treasures of the Second Temple before the Roman siege. Others believe it predates them entirely, perhaps compiled by temple priests or royal scribes fleeing persecution. And yet, for all the detail, not a single treasure described in the Copper Scroll has ever been officially recovered. Why? Some locations are so vague they defy modern mapping. Others describe landmarks long since destroyed, and some believe the treasure was already found and never reported. There are even whispers that modern governments and institutions quietly explored the sites, extracting what was there, far from public eyes. But the deeper mystery is this: what was the purpose of this list? Was it a sacred inventory meant to preserve knowledge during exile? A coded message, only decipherable by those with the right key? Or was it a final act of defiance, a reminder that even in ruin, a people's wealth and history would not be taken? Treasure hunters, archaeologists, and conspiracy theorists continue to search. The caves, the valleys, the ruins of ancient Israel, all still hold their secrets. And the Copper Scroll? It sits today in the Jordan Museum in Amman, cold, cracked, and unreadable without modern technology. A relic of ancient hope, a blueprint for something vast, a map with no confirmed destination, but one that still whispers to anyone daring enough to follow its trail. The treasure is real, if only you can find it. In the arid plains of modern-day Pakistan and northwest India, archaeologists unearthed something extraordinary. An ancient city, well-planned, geometrically aligned with wide streets, public baths, drainage systems, and multi-story homes made of kiln-fired brick. This wasn't a provincial outpost. This was a civilization. The Indus Valley Civilization, also known as Harappan Civilization, one of the cradles of human history. It flourished around 2600 BCE alongside ancient Egypt and Mesopotamia. But unlike its contemporaries, the Indus left behind no towering pyramids, no grand ziggurats, no massive statues of kings. Instead, it left behind something more elusive: silence. No deciphered script, no known rulers, no epic texts proclaiming conquest or divinity, just cities, dozens of them, with advanced urban planning, standardized weights and measures, and complex trade networks stretching as far as Mesopotamia. Then, around 1900 BCE, something happened. They vanished. Not with a bang, not with fire and ruin, but with a slow, enigmatic decline. The great cities, Mohenjo-Daro, Harappa, Dholavira, were abandoned, bricks scavenged, streets emptied, the life gone. So what caused one of the most sophisticated ancient civilizations to collapse? One theory points to climate change. Shifting monsoon patterns may have dried up the Gagar-Hakra River, thought to be the mythic Saraswati. Without water, agriculture failed, trade routes died, populations migrated. Another theory suggests tectonic activity. A massive earthquake could have redirected rivers and disrupted infrastructure, leading to urban breakdown. Some scholars point to internal socio-political shifts, gradual decentralization, economic overreach, or the erosion of a unifying system. But here's what makes the Indus mystery so unique. There are no signs of war, no mass graves, no destruction by invasion, no conquering army leaving its mark. They didn't fall to swords, they simply left. And the greatest puzzle? Their written script remains undeciphered. Hundreds of seals, inscriptions, and symbols, still silent after 4,000 years. Their voice, their thoughts, their history remain locked away. What knowledge did they hold? What stories did they tell? And why did such an advanced people vanish without a trace? Some believe their wisdom was absorbed into later Indian cultures. Others wonder if they left behind a legacy we've misattributed, or perhaps missed entirely. The Indus Valley Civilization is a ghost in the archaeological record, a world of order and intellect that rose in harmony, then faded into mystery. But its ruins still whisper beneath layers of earth and time. We were here, we built, we thrived, and one day, if we can unlock their language, we may finally hear their story, not of how they fell, but of how they once lived, quietly, brilliantly, and ahead of their time. In 1901, off the coast of a small Greek island called Antikythera, sponge divers stumbled upon the wreck of an ancient Roman cargo ship. Among the statues, amphorae, and broken relics pulled from the seabed was a lump of corroded bronze. At first glance, it seemed unremarkable, just another artifact ravaged by the sea. But inside that lump was a machine, a mechanism of such complexity it would take over a century to understand. Today, we know it as the Antikythera Mechanism, a 2,000-year-old device that scientists now call the world's first analog computer. Made around 100 BCE, the device was powered by a hand crank. Inside were dozens of bronze gears, interlocking with shocking precision. It could calculate lunar phases, eclipses, planetary movements, even the dates of the ancient Olympic Games. In an era when most people still believed the stars were fixed in a crystal dome, someone had built a device that mapped the heavens. Let that sink in. This wasn't a toy. It wasn't symbolic. It was a scientific instrument, capable of modeling astronomical cycles with an accuracy that wouldn't be seen again for over 1,000 years. And yet, we don't know who built it, or how they acquired such knowledge. Some speculate it was designed by followers of Archimedes. Others link it to Hipparchus, the father of trigonometry. But the truth is, we don't know. There are no blueprints, no other examples. Nothing like it has ever been found from the ancient world. What makes the Antikythera mechanism so haunting is not just that it exists, but that it exists alone. It hints at a lost lineage of knowledge, a level of scientific understanding we didn't believe the ancient Greeks possessed. Gears with precise tooth counts, dials that account for the irregular orbit of the moon, a detail so advanced it would baffle astronomers for centuries. All of it in a device no larger than a shoebox. So the questions remain: was this an isolated genius ahead of their time, or part of a broader technological tradition, now erased by war, fire, and collapse? Could there have been more machines like it, lost in shipwrecks, destroyed in temples, or hidden in private collections? And if this is what we found, what haven't we found? The Antikythera Mechanism is not just an artifact. It's a message, one that says, the ancients knew more than we ever imagined, and perhaps in some ways, they were looking further ahead than we do now. Before the rise of the mighty Aztec Empire, before the great city of Tenochtitlan rose from the marshes of Lake Texcoco, there was a legend of a land far to the north, a sacred place, an island in the middle of a lake, the ancestral homeland of the Aztecs. They called it Aslan. According to Aztec lore, it was from Aslan that their people, known as the Mexica, began a divine migration guided by prophecy and gods. For generations, they wandered through valleys and deserts until they were told to settle where they saw an eagle perched on a cactus devouring a snake. That sign led them to build Tenochtitlan, what is now modern-day Mexico City. But Aslan was never forgotten. It remained a powerful symbol in Aztec mythology, a place of origins, of memory, of destiny. So here's the question. Was Aslan just a mythical paradise, or was it real? Some scholars believe Aslan refers to a symbolic spiritual origin, a metaphor for cosmic rebirth. But others think it was an actual physical place, possibly located in northern Mexico or even as far north as the American Southwest. Clues lie in the names. Ancient codices describe Aslan as the place of whiteness or place of herons, possibly referencing water-rich lands surrounded by desert. Some versions say the Mexica left after Aslan grew corrupt, ruled by tyrants, or consumed by conflict. They became exiles, seeking a promised land. In recent years, historians and archaeologists have looked to regions like Nayarit, Sonora, and even Utah and New Mexico, searching for ruins, glyphs, and oral traditions that echo the Aztec journey. Native tribes, such as the Uto-Aztecan speakers in the American Southwest, share linguistic and cultural ties that suggest a shared ancient origin. Cave drawings, artifacts, migrations that match the Aztec chronicles, but no definitive proof. No city, no ruins, no map. And yet, the memory lingers. Aslan has even taken on political symbolism in modern times, a symbol of lost identity, ancestral roots, and reclamation. But beneath the metaphor, the mystery remains. Did a great city once stand in the north, buried by sand and time, whose people would go on to build one of the greatest empires in the Americas? Was Aslan real? And if it was, where is it now? Until it's found, Aslan remains a tantalizing fragment of the past, a riddle of origin, migration, and destiny etched into legend, waiting to be rediscovered, because sometimes the greatest cities leave no ruins, only stories that refuse to die. Deep in the heart of Maharashtra, India, nestled within the ancient Ellora caves, stands a structure so breathtaking, so incomprehensibly vast, that even today, modern engineers are left in awe. This is the Kailasa Temple, but this isn't a temple that was built. It was revealed, carved downward out of a single mountain of basalt rock. No bricks, no mortar, no scaffolding, just stone and vision. This megastructure, dedicated to Lord Shiva, isn't merely a monument, it's a sculpted city, a vertical marvel stretching 100 feet deep, 200 feet wide, and 300 feet long. It includes pillars, shrines, towers, sculptures, bridges, and interior chambers, all perfectly aligned, balanced, and decorated with intricate carvings. And it was all carved by hand. Estimates suggest that over 400,000 tons of rock were removed to create the temple. Not hauled away in pieces, but chiseled and cleared with ancient tools without dynamite, cranes, or industrial machinery. Let that sink in. To this day, no one knows exactly how it was accomplished. Mainstream historians say it was commissioned in the 8th century by King Krishna I of the Rashtrakuta dynasty and completed over several decades by thousands of laborers. But even that timeline raises questions. Could such precision, down to the symmetry of columns, the positioning of iconography, the acoustic harmony of its chambers, truly be achieved over a single human lifetime, let alone a few? And then there's the method. Unlike other temples constructed from the ground up, Kailasa was carved top-down, an almost inconceivable strategy that required no errors, no second chances, and absolute foresight. One wrong cut, and the entire structure would be compromised. How did they visualize it? Was it blueprints passed down through generations? Was there a master sculptor whose genius has been lost to history? Or was there, as some believe, a forgotten science or technology used in the planning stages, perhaps geometric knowledge far beyond what was typical for the time. Some even speculate the involvement of lost civilizations, or more fringe theories suggest divine inspiration, ancient energy systems, or extraterrestrial influence. But regardless of belief, one thing is undeniable. Kailasa Temple is not just a structure, it's a statement, a declaration that human will, imagination, and devotion can do the impossible. It stands not only as a tribute to faith, but as a challenge to modern understanding. Because when you walk through its halls, when you trace your fingers across the stone that once lived inside a mountain, you're not just seeing architecture, you're standing inside a mystery, one carved in silence, preserved in stone, and echoing through time, asking, how far were the ancients really willing to go to touch the divine? Imagine a place where the knowledge of the ancient world, science, philosophy, astronomy, medicine, history, was gathered under one roof. Scrolls written by Egyptian priests, Babylonian astronomers, Indian mathematicians, Greek philosophers, a living archive of everything humanity had discovered, up to that point. That place existed, and it was called the Library of Alexandria. Founded in the 3rd century BCE in the Egyptian city of Alexandria, the library was the brainchild of Ptolemy I Soter, a former general of Alexander the Great. His vision? To collect every book in existence, every scroll, every idea, every whisper of knowledge from every corner of the known world. Scholars believe the library once held between 400,000 to 1,000,000 scrolls, some unique, some priceless. From early theories of the atom to ancient maps of the heavens, to treatises on language, medicine, technology, it was humanity's brain, centuries before the printing press, centuries before the internet. But then, it was gone. Its destruction remains one of history's greatest tragedies and one of its greatest mysteries. No one knows exactly how the Library of Alexandria was destroyed. Some blame Julius Caesar, whose siege in 48 BCE may have sparked a fire that spread to the library's scrolls. Others point to Christian zealots in the 4th century who viewed pagan knowledge as heretical. Still others suggest Muslim conquerors centuries later finished what earlier regimes had begun. But perhaps the most haunting truth is this. There was no single moment, no final blaze, just a slow, quiet unraveling of knowledge, lost through war, censorship, neglect, and time. Imagine what was lost. Books that predated the Bible, treatises from civilizations whose voices we no longer hear, medical knowledge that could have saved lives, technologies that might have reshaped history. What if the earth wasn't flat to the ancients, but that truth burned with the scrolls? What if the secrets of renewable energy, of long-forgotten machines, of ancient journeys across oceans were all shelved and erased? The Library of Alexandria didn't just hold scrolls. It held potential, a vision of what humanity could become, and a warning of how easily it can all be taken away. Today, its memory lives on in fragments, quotes in lost works, references in surviving texts, whispers passed from generation to generation. But the library itself? Gone. A beacon of reason, extinguished in the dark, and with it perhaps the very key to understanding our own past. Because knowledge once doesn't scream, it fades, scroll by scroll, page by page, until we forget that we ever knew. Scattered across the ruins of the Roman Empire, France, Germany, Hungary, even as far as Britain, archaeologists have unearthed dozens of small hollow objects. Each one is shaped like a 12-sided geometric solid, a dodecahedron, made of bronze, about the size of a baseball, with circular holes of varying sizes on each face, and small knobs protruding from each corner. They're unlike anything else found in the Roman world. No inscriptions, no markings, no explanation. And to this day, no one knows what they were for. They aren't mentioned in any Roman texts. No historian of the time ever described their use. No surviving artwork shows them in context. And yet, over 100 of them have been discovered. Were they tools, ritual objects, astronomical devices? The theories are as numerous as the objects themselves. Some suggest they were surveying instruments used to measure distances or angles, perhaps by inserting pegs or threads through the holes. Others propose they were candle holders, their ornate structure projecting sacred patterns of light during rituals. One of the most popular theories is that they were calendrical devices used to determine the ideal planting dates based on sunlight shining through specific holes. But if that's true, why were they never standardized? Each one is slightly different in size, hole diameter, and construction. Then there are the fringe ideas that they were military signaling tools, knitting gauges, or even children's toys. But here's what makes the Roman dodecahedrons truly mysterious. They seem to serve no practical military or economic function, which is unusual for the highly utilitarian Romans. They weren't mass-produced. They appear in high-status graves and shrines, places of meaning, not manufacturing, and always with silence. Some have been found in pairs. Others were discovered alongside coins and jewelry, suggesting value. But their purpose, their origin, their design philosophy remains completely speculative. What civilization produces dozens of precision-crafted geometric objects and leaves behind no clue about why? Were they tools for a priesthood, teaching devices for geometry or astronomy, or remnants of a knowledge system, a symbolic code, that the empire lost before it ever understood? The Roman dodecahedrons sit in museums today behind glass labeled with a single word, unknown. They are relics of precision, of intention, of meaning, now severed from memory. Proof that even the most advanced empires can leave behind puzzles they never thought we'd need to solve. Because sometimes the most powerful objects aren't the ones we understand, but the ones we don't. In 1947, high in the Judean desert near the shores of the Dead Sea, a young Bedouin shepherd threw a rock into a cave and heard the sound of shattering clay. What he had stumbled upon would become one of the greatest archaeological discoveries of the 20th century. Hidden in jars, sealed away for over 2,000 years, were fragile rolls of parchment and papyrus, texts written in Hebrew, Aramaic, and Greek, some tattered, some nearly intact. Together, they would come to be known as the Dead Sea Scrolls. Over the next decade, archaeologists uncovered over 900 manuscripts from 11 desert caves, containing everything from biblical scriptures, apocryphal writings, sectarian laws, hymns, and prophecies. These scrolls predated the earliest known copies of the Hebrew Bible by nearly 1,000 years, and with them came a revelation. The Bible had a history. No longer was it a fixed, unchanging monolith. The scrolls showed variant versions of sacred texts, alternate psalms, lost books once considered scripture, and differing accounts of biblical events. The famous book of Isaiah was found nearly fully preserved, its words echoing through time, almost identical to modern versions, and yet not quite. It was as if we had opened a window into the evolution of belief itself. But the scrolls didn't just preserve scripture. They revealed the world of the Essenes, a Jewish sect who had withdrawn into the desert, awaiting the apocalypse. They saw themselves as the righteous remnant, keepers of divine truth, living in purity while the world descended into corruption. Their writings spoke of a coming war between the sons of light and the sons of darkness, of messianic figures, of cosmic justice. Some passages mirrored early Christian ideas, others directly contradicted them. Could the Essenes have influenced the rise of Christianity? Was John the Baptist one of them? Did Jesus himself encounter their teachings? Scholars still debate. And then there's the mystery of the missing scrolls, fragments rumored to exist in private collections or never made public, texts that may contain lost gospels, alternate histories, or teachings once banned as heresy. The Dead Sea Scrolls shattered the illusion of religious uniformity. They showed that ancient Judaism and early Christianity was diverse, dynamic, and often divided. They also proved something deeper. That belief evolves, that sacred texts were edited, debated, and rewritten over generations. And perhaps that no scripture is ever truly final. The caves of Qumran gave us more than old words. They gave us context. They gave us doubt. And in that doubt, they gave us a deeper kind of faith. Because what survives isn't always what was meant to. It's what had the will to endure. And the Dead Sea Scrolls, hidden in silence for 2,000 years, endured for a reason. In the heart of California's Death Valley National Park lies a desolate, sun-scorched landscape known as Racetrack Playa, flat, cracked, lifeless. And yet, something moves here. Massive rocks, some weighing hundreds of pounds, slide mysteriously across the desert floor, leaving long, winding trails etched behind them in the dry, baked earth. There are no animals pulling them, no people, no machinery, and most baffling of all, no footprints. For decades, these were called the sailing stones. Locals and scientists alike were stunned. Some blamed powerful winds, others suggested magnetic forces. A few turned to more exotic explanations: earthquakes, supernatural energy, even extraterrestrials. The rocks themselves sit idle, still, unmoving, until one day they're in a completely different place. Some trails stretch hundreds of feet, curving, zigzagging, even seeming to change direction mid-journey. The mystery endured for nearly a century. Then in 2014, researchers finally caught the stones in motion using time-lapse cameras and GPS tracking. The explanation? A rare and delicate combination of conditions. On cold winter nights, a thin sheet of ice forms beneath the rocks as shallow water floods the playa. When morning sunlight hits, the ice begins to crack and slowly drift, pushed by light winds. These floating ice sheets nudge the rocks along, dragging them ever so slightly over the wet, slick mud. It's a subtle, elegant solution, but even with the mystery solved, something deeper lingers. Because it wasn't just the motion of the rocks that captivated us. It was the idea that in one of the hottest, driest places on Earth, the ground could come alive. That nature, without force or fire, could move mountains inch by inch. And perhaps more importantly, it's a reminder that the world still holds silent miracles, that even in the age of satellites, sensors, and science, there are still places where the Earth whispers through motion rather than words. The moving stones of Death Valley didn't defy physics. They revealed its poetry. And in their slow, steady glide across the playa, they left us something more valuable than explanation: awe. When we think of Egypt, we think of pyramids, pharaohs, and temples rising into the sky. But what if Egypt's greatest secret doesn't rise at all? What if it lies hidden beneath the ground? Ancient Greek historians told of it. A place so vast, so complex, it made the pyramids look simple by comparison. They called it the Labyrinth of Egypt. Herodotus, writing in the 5th century BCE, claimed to have seen it with his own eyes. He described a structure with 3,000 rooms, half above ground, half below. Corridors and chambers so intricate, so expansive, that no man could map it fully. He wrote, "I found it surpassing the pyramids. It is hard to believe that it is the work of men." Other ancient sources, including Strabo and Pliny the Elder, echoed the tale. A massive underground complex near Lake Moeris in the area we now call Hawara. And then it vanished. Centuries passed. The sands shifted. The labyrinth became a legend. But in the 19th century, archaeologists began excavating near Hawara, and they found something. Beneath the surface were signs of walls, columns, and massive stone platforms. In 2008, a joint expedition using ground-penetrating radar detected an extensive underground structure, entire chambers buried beneath the earth. The results were staggering. But what happened next was silence. The site was sealed off. Excavation permits denied. No further digs were allowed. Why? Some say it's to protect fragile structures. Others whisper of political pressure or secrets too controversial to reveal. Because if the labyrinth is real, if those ancient descriptions were true, it changes everything we know about Egyptian engineering. No longer were the pyramids the pinnacle. They were merely the surface. Imagine a sprawling subterranean city, corridors lined with sacred texts, tombs of forgotten kings, maps, machines, knowledge lost in stone. Some believe the labyrinth was not just a monument, but a vault of wisdom, a place where priests guarded sacred knowledge during times of upheaval. Could it hold scrolls from the Library of Alexandria, blueprints of ancient technology, proof of an Egyptian legacy far older and more advanced than we've been told? We don't know, because no one is allowed to look. The labyrinth sleeps beneath the sand, silent, sealed, waiting, and every grain of dust that covers it is a barrier between the present and a past we may not yet be ready to uncover. But one truth remains: the labyrinth existed, and it may still be there, just beneath our feet, buried, forgotten, and yet refusing to be lost forever. Far out in the vast blue heart of the Pacific Ocean, among the remote Caroline Islands of Micronesia, lies a place that should not exist. A city built on coral reefs, a maze of stone rising from the sea itself, massive, silent, and abandoned. This is Nan Madol, the so-called Venice of the Pacific, and one of the greatest architectural enigmas in human history. Spanning nearly 200 acres, Nan Madol consists of over 90 artificial islets, separated by narrow tidal canals and built entirely from basalt columns. Volcanic stones stacked like dark hexagonal logs. Some individual stones weigh up to 50 tons, and together form walls up to 25 feet high. And yet, No one can explain how they got there. There are no trees on Pohnpei, the island where Nan Madol stands, large enough to act as rollers. No cranes, no written records, no oral traditions explaining the exact construction, and no nearby quarry matching the scale of the project. So the question looms, who built Nan Madol, and how did they do it? According to local legend, the city was built by two brothers, Olasipa and Olosopa, who sailed to Pohnpei carrying powerful magic. They levitated the stones into place and founded a dynasty of god kings known as the Saudalurs. Myth, or memory of a lost technology? Mainstream archaeologists date the site's construction to around the 13th century, crediting the Saudalur dynasty with its creation. But even they admit there is no precedent for this kind of engineering in the region. No nearby culture with the infrastructure, population, or technology to explain its scale. And then there's the location. Nan Madol is the only known ancient city ever built entirely on the ocean, not near it, not beside it, on it. Why would anyone choose such a remote and unstable location? Why risk building on coral flats constantly threatened by storms, erosion, and tides? Some theorists believe Nan Madol served as a ceremonial capital, a sacred space of isolation for religious rituals and elite rule. Others suggest it was a containment zone, a prison even, for dangerous spiritual forces. But some go even further. Could Nan Madol be the last remnant of a sunken continent, a Pacific Atlantis? Evidence, they say, of a prehistoric maritime civilization lost to rising seas and tectonic shifts. While those claims remain controversial, one thing is undeniable. Nan Madol is an anomaly, a megalithic marvel in a place where nothing like it should exist. Its basalt towers now crumble under salt and time, its canals fill with still black water, its history lost in silence. No one lives there, no one dares. Locals say the site is cursed, guarded by spirits of the ancient kings. Even today, few will enter after dark, but the stones remain, stacked, aligned, refusing to fall. And in the middle of the Pacific, where science falters and legend begins, Nan Madol whispers of a world we barely remember, and one we may never fully understand. High on a chalk hill in the quiet countryside of Oxfordshire, England, a great figure stretches nearly 400 feet long across the green landscape. Its body is sleek, its legs extended in motion, its head raised, alert, almost eternal. It's a horse. But not just any horse, a symbol so ancient, so enduring that no one knows who made it or why. This is the Uffington White Horse, a geoglyph carved into the hillside that is made by digging trenches deep into the soil and filling them with crushed white chalk. From above, it appears almost modern, minimalist, abstract, almost like a logo. But this isn't modern at all. Radiocarbon dating places its creation to around 1400 BCE, over 3,000 years ago during the Late Bronze Age. That means the Uffington White Horse predates the Roman invasion, the Anglo-Saxons, and even Stonehenge's final phase. And yet, we still don't know who created it or what it was meant to represent. Was it a tribal totem, a symbol of the gods, a celestial marker, perhaps pointing to the stars? Theories abound. Some believe it honored Epona, the Celtic horse goddess of fertility and protection. Others think it marked the territory of a powerful chieftain, or was a landmark for travelers guiding them across the Ridgeway, Britain's oldest road. But none of the early peoples left behind writing. No inscriptions, no clues, only the image, galloping across time. And here's what makes it even more mysterious. The horse can only be fully seen from the air. From the ground, it's difficult to grasp its full shape. So why would Bronze Age people, who had no way to fly, create something meant to be seen from the sky? Was it for the gods, or something else watching from above? More curiously, the figure has been maintained for over 3 millennia. Generation after generation, locals have scoured the horse, clearing vegetation and re-chalking the lines without interruption. Even when its original meaning was lost, the ritual continued. Why? What compelled people to preserve something they no longer understood? Perhaps some symbols are bigger than belief. Perhaps they're memories made of earth, encoded into the landscape like cosmic fingerprints. Or perhaps the white horse is a message, a signal from the past. Not for us, but for the sky. Because long before we left our mark on history, we carved it into the land. And the Uffington White Horse, ancient and unwavering, still runs, not through fields, but through time. A reminder that even when meaning fades, mystery endures. Off the southern tip of Japan, where the East China Sea fades into the Pacific, lies the remote island of Yonaguni. It's a land of rugged cliffs, fierce currents, and ancient mystery. But it's not what's above water that draws attention. It's what lies beneath. Just off the coast, 25 meters below the surface, divers discovered a structure that defies explanation. Massive stone platforms, stair-like terraces, geometric edges, perfectly flat surfaces, right angles that look designed. This is the Yonaguni Monument. To some, it's nothing more than a natural rock formation, sculpted by millennia of currents and tectonic forces. But to others, it is the ruins of a sunken city, an Atlantis of the East. Discovered in 1986 by diver Kihachiro Aratake, the site quickly stirred global debate. Some archaeologists dismissed it as a coincidence of geology, but marine geologist Dr. Masaki Kimura spent decades studying the structure, and he believes it was man-made. He points to features that seem deliberate: wide platforms and flat roads resembling ceremonial plazas, a staircase leading to an elevated terrace, a megalithic archway, collapsed and lying nearby, and even what appears to be carved symbols etched into the stone. Kimura believes the site could be over 10,000 years old, placing it well before the rise of known civilizations in Asia. That would mean it existed before the last ice age ended, at a time when sea levels were far lower. So if Yonaguni is truly man-made, then it could be the remains of a civilization lost to rising seas, a people whose cities were drowned by time, whose memory was erased by water. A few researchers link it to the lost land of Mu, a mythical Pacific civilization said to have vanished beneath the ocean. Others think it was part of a forgotten coastal culture, capable of building in stone long before recorded history. Of course, skeptics remain. They argue that natural tectonic fractures combined with ocean currents could produce such patterns, that our minds are simply wired to see order in chaos, to imagine cities in stone. But then you dive, and you see it: the steps, the walkways, the towering monoliths rising from the seafloor like ancient temples, and you begin to wonder, what if we're wrong? What if history isn't missing just pages, but entire volumes, drowned, forgotten, unacknowledged? The Yonaguni Monument rests in silence beneath the waves. It doesn't offer answers, only presence, only form, only the echo of something that once was, or might have been. And in that still, alien world under the sea, the stones speak not in words, but in questions. Is this the legacy of a civilization lost to the ocean, or just the ocean, mimicking the mind of man? Until we know for sure, Yonaguni remains exactly what it feels like: a monument, not just to the past, but to the mystery of forgetting. It's a book, bound in vellum, carbon dated to the early 15th century. Roughly 240 pages, though several are missing, perhaps intentionally. Its script is written in a language that doesn't exist. Its illustrations are haunting, otherworldly. And for over 600 years, no one has been able to read a single word. They call it the Voynich Manuscript. Discovered in 1912 by a rare book dealer named Wilfrid Voynich, the manuscript has since become one of the most confounding artifacts in human history. The writing flows smoothly, as if from someone fluent in its script. Letters repeat with natural rhythm. It follows grammar, structure, paragraphs, but the alphabet is unknown. The words appear nowhere else in human history. It is, quite literally, untranslatable, but it gets stranger. The manuscript contains detailed illustrations, but none that offer clarity. There are plants, but no botanist can identify them. Astrological diagrams with constellations that don't align with our sky. Nude female figures bathing in tubes connected by organic pipelines, like some kind of alchemical plumbing system. It's part herbal guide, part astronomical chart, part scientific notebook, and part dream. So who wrote it? Some believe it was the work of an eccentric genius, perhaps a lone monk, or a secret scholar working in code to protect forbidden knowledge. Others have speculated it's a hoax, designed in the Renaissance to fool nobles into thinking they were buying ancient wisdom. But if it's a hoax, it's one of the most elaborate linguistic forgeries ever constructed, because linguistic analyses show the text behaves like a real language, with patterns of repetition and variation that suggest meaning. In other words, if it's fake, it's too perfect to be random. Then there's the unsettling possibility that it was never meant for us, that it was written by someone or something so far outside our linguistic structure that translation is impossible, not because we're not smart enough, but because the context is missing entirely. Could it be a memory system, A mnemonic device, or even the record of a forgotten civilization? Could it be a lost script meant to encode ancient knowledge in plain sight? Or something even stranger, a language invented by one person, known only to them, now lost forever in the pages they left behind? Today, the Voynich manuscript sits locked away in Yale University's Banica Library, digitized, studied, analyzed by codebreakers, linguists, cryptographers, even AI. Still, no one can read it. It remains a silent enigma, a book without a voice, a message without a key. And perhaps that's the true magic of the Voynich manuscript. Not that it hides its meaning, but that it makes us question the nature of meaning itself. Because in a world where we believe everything can be decoded, this book reminds us of one uncomfortable truth. Some knowledge stays hidden. Over 2,000 years ago, China was united under a single emperor for the first time. His name, Qin Shi Huang, a ruler of immense ambition and power who ordered the construction of the Great Wall and standardized the written language, weights, and currency. But his greatest legacy may lie beneath the earth. The tomb of Qin Shi Huang, a vast underground mausoleum said to be the largest of its kind in the world. Located near the modern city of Xi'an, the tomb is surrounded by the famous terracotta army, over 8,000 life-sized clay soldiers, horses, and chariots, each unique, guarding their emperor in the afterlife. Yet, the tomb itself remains unopened. For centuries, the Chinese government has restricted archaeological excavations, citing the risk of damage and the belief that the tomb contains booby traps, mercury lakes, and other lethal defenses. Ancient texts describe an underground palace filled with flowing rivers of mercury, mechanical traps, and representations of the heavens, all designed to replicate the emperor's empire in miniature. Modern surveys confirm elevated mercury levels in the soil around the site, fueling legends of toxic pools beneath the surface. Despite decades of study, the central burial chamber remains a mystery. Who was Qin Shi Huang in death? What treasures and secrets did he take to the grave? And what can his tomb reveal about the culture and beliefs of ancient China? The tomb stands as a testament to a civilization's reverence for power and immortality, and the lengths to which a ruler would go to preserve his legacy. But it also embodies a profound mystery. Why has such a monumental site remained untouched in the modern era? Is it fear, respect, or a recognition that some secrets are better left buried? The tomb of Qin Shi Huang waits silently beneath the earth, an emperor's kingdom frozen in time, guarded not only by clay soldiers, but by the mysteries of history itself. And until the earth finally yields its secrets, we are left only to wonder what lies beyond the gates of the eternal palace. Deep within the dense, impenetrable rainforests of the Amazon basin lies a mystery that has captivated explorers and researchers for centuries. Whispers of a lost civilization, a city swallowed by jungle, a place known by some as Ratanaba, sometimes called the Brazilian Atlantis. Unlike the famous ruins of Machu Picchu or Tikal, Ratanaba remains elusive. It is hidden beneath a sea of green, with no grand pyramids rising above the canopy, no stone inscriptions etched in open air. But satellite imagery, LiDAR scans, and occasional archaeological finds hint at something extraordinary. Patterns of geometric earthworks, circular mounds and canals, engineered landscapes carved by hands long vanished, traces of roads stretching for miles through the forest floor. These are the signs of a complex society that once thrived, an advanced civilization that built cities, farmed the land, and managed the waters of the Amazon long before Europeans arrived. Local indigenous legends speak of ancient peoples who built great settlements that sank beneath the forest after cataclysmic floods. European explorers in the 16th century told tales of golden cities and mighty kingdoms lost to the jungle. But their writings were dismissed as myths, dismissed as exaggerations, fueled by the search for El Dorado. Modern science is beginning to agree otherwise. Using remote sensing technology, researchers have uncovered massive earthworks, some dating back over 2,000 years, proving that the Amazon was not a pristine wilderness untouched by man. It was a cultivated, managed landscape. So what happened to this civilization? Some believe a climate shift, drying and flooding, forced them to abandon their cities. Others suggest disease, warfare, or the arrival of European colonizers ultimately destroyed their legacy. But what remains is a profound challenge to history. For centuries, the Amazon was thought to be an untouched wilderness, the lungs of the world, free from the imprint of human civilization. But Ratanabá, the Brazilian Atlantis, tells a different story. That deep in the green heart of the planet lies evidence of a forgotten empire, a civilization that mastered agriculture, urban planning, and water management on a scale rivaling the great ancient cities of the Old World. Its ruins are hidden but not gone, waiting for us to see beyond the trees, to listen to the whispers of the jungle, and to remember that sometimes the greatest civilizations are the ones the world forgot to look for. Because the story of humanity is not only written in stone and scrolls, but in the soil and leaves of the earth itself. In 1922, British archaeologist Howard Carter made one of the most spectacular discoveries in history. Deep in the Valley of the Kings, he uncovered the tomb of Tutankhamun, King Tut, a young pharaoh who ruled Egypt over 3,000 years ago. The tomb was nearly intact, filled with treasures beyond imagination, golden masks, jewels, chariots, and sacred artifacts. But with the discovery came whispers. Whispers of a curse. The curse of the pharaohs. Legend claimed that anyone who disturbed the resting place of a pharaoh would suffer death or misfortune. And soon, strange events began to unfold. Lord Carnarvon, the tomb's financier, died mysteriously of an infected mosquito bite only months after the tomb was opened. Several other members of the expedition suffered illness, accidents, or untimely deaths. Newspapers seized on the story, spinning it into a global sensation. Was it coincidence or something darker? Scientists pointed to bacteria and mold sealed inside the tomb, now released into the air and causing respiratory illness. Others dismissed it as superstition fueled by tragedy and imagination. But the legend endured. More recently, some researchers discovered high levels of toxic substances in the tomb's artifacts, arsenic and mercury, possibly contributing to the deaths. Yet, even today, the curse of King Tut's tomb remains one of history's most enduring myths. Is it a warning, a protection, or simply the tragic story of opening a tomb too soon? Regardless of truth, the story reminds us that some secrets, no matter how valuable, are meant to rest. Because the treasures of Tutankhamun aren't just gold and jewels. They are a testament to a civilization's reverence for the dead, and the thin line between discovery and desecration. And that sometimes the greatest danger lies not in the tomb itself, but in the curiosity that unlocks it. Off the northern coast of Cuba, beneath the turquoise waters of the Caribbean Sea, lies a secret that has confounded scientists and explorers alike. A sprawling city, not built on land, but submerged beneath the waves. Discovered in the early 2000s by a team of marine geologists and divers, this underwater site revealed stone structures, pyramids, and roads, arranged with remarkable precision. At depths of nearly 600 meters, these formations stretch over several square kilometers. But what truly astonished researchers was the estimated age. Dating techniques suggest this city could be over 10,000 years old, long before the rise of known civilizations in the Americas or anywhere else in the world. If true, it would rewrite everything we know about ancient human history. How could a city of such scale and complexity exist at a time when humans were thought to be nomadic hunter-gatherers? And what could have caused such an advanced settlement to sink beneath the ocean? Some theories point to cataclysmic sea level rise following the last ice age, flooding coastal regions and forcing survivors to migrate. Others suggest an ancient earthquake or tsunami triggered the submersion. Skeptics argue that these are natural rock formations or underwater geological processes, but divers report seeing carved steps, terraces, and walls that defy simple explanation. If this is indeed the ruins of a lost civilization, it raises profound questions. Who were these people? What technology did they possess? And why has their story been hidden beneath the waves for millennia? The sunken city off Cuba remains shrouded in mystery, a watery graveyard of history waiting to be uncovered. Its silent stones challenge our understanding of time and progress, whispering of a world we've only just begun to explore. Because beneath the ocean's surface lies not just water, but the possibility of a forgotten chapter in humanity's ancient journey. On a tiny speck of land in the vast Pacific Ocean, far from any continent, lies Easter Island, a place famous for its towering stone statues, the Moai. But beyond these silent sentinels lies another mystery, one written not in stone, but in glyphs, a script carved onto wooden tablets now almost lost to time. This is the Rongo script. Discovered in the 19th century, the tablets bear hundreds of symbols, lines, figures, and shapes that appear to form a complex language, and yet no one has ever been able to read it. Linguists, cryptographers, and historians have puzzled over Rongo for over a century. Is it a writing system, a mnemonic device, a ceremonial code? We don't know. Some believe it was used by the island's ancient priesthood to record history, genealogy, or religious rites. Others think it was a calendar or a method to invoke divine powers. But tragedy struck. Many of the tablets were destroyed, lost, or scattered during the tumultuous period following European contact. Disease, colonization, and cultural upheaval all took their toll. Today, a few fragments remain, precious shards of a vanished culture's voice. And the mystery lingers. How could a civilization so isolated develop such an intricate system? Why did it disappear so completely, and what stories, knowledge, or warnings are locked away in its symbols? Rongo reminds us that language is more than just communication. It is identity, memory, and power. When a language dies, a world disappears, and on Easter Island, the silence left by the lost script is as profound as the shadows cast by the Moai themselves, because some secrets are not just lost to time, they are lost to us forever. In the late 19th century, near the village of Castelnau-de-Lez in southern France, an extraordinary discovery was made that challenged everything we thought we knew about humanity's past. A massive femur bone, measuring over 60 centimeters in length, was unearthed from a cave. The bone belonged to a human, but one of enormous size. Estimates based on this single bone suggested a giant standing well over 3 meters tall, nearly 10 feet. A figure far beyond the height of any modern human. This was the giant of Castelnau. Scientists and archaeologists at the time were stunned. Who was this giant? Was it a member of a lost race of towering humans, a prehistoric anomaly, or perhaps a myth given flesh? The find sparked heated debates. Skeptics claimed the bone belonged to a prehistoric animal or was distorted by fossilization. But several experts confirmed it was indeed human. A colossal human. Giant skeletons and bones have appeared throughout history, in caves, burial mounds, and ancient ruins, from the Americas to Europe and Asia. Legends of giants permeate many cultures, stories of beings taller and stronger than any man alive, who walked the earth in forgotten times. But the scientific record is often quick to dismiss these accounts as myth or exaggeration. What if the giant of Castelnau is proof that these legends had a kernel of truth? What if there was a time when giants truly roamed the earth? Could they have been a separate branch of humanity, lost to extinction, hidden from history by time and silence? Or were they simply humans, shaped by environment and evolution, who lived lives so different from ours that we struggle to recognize them? The giant of Castelnau remains a tantalizing mystery, a single bone echoing a story untold. A reminder that the past may hold wonders and terrors we are only beginning to comprehend, because sometimes the bones of giants lie buried not just in the earth, but in the forgotten pages of history itself. In the bustling city of Delhi, India, stands an ancient marvel that has baffled scientists and historians for centuries. The Iron Pillar of Delhi, a towering column over 7 meters tall, weighing more than 6 tons, crafted entirely from iron. What makes this pillar remarkable isn't just its size or craftsmanship. It's that after over 1,600 years, exposed to the monsoon rains and humid climate of northern India, the pillar remains virtually free of rust. A feat that defies the natural laws of corrosion. Most iron structures exposed to moisture will succumb to rust, decay that eats away metal over time. But the iron pillar stands almost as pristine today as when it was first forged, around the 4th century CE during the reign of Chandragupta II of the Gupta Empire. How did ancient smiths achieve this? Researchers discovered that the pillar's iron contains a high percentage of phosphorus, but almost no sulfur or manganese, elements that influence corrosion resistance. Combined with Delhi's dry air and the pillar's particular surface chemistry, this has created a protective layer of misawite, preventing rust. But the story doesn't end with science. The pillar is also inscribed with an ancient Sanskrit inscription praising King Chandragupta and his military victories, hinting at its cultural and religious significance. Some believe the pillar was erected not just as a monument, but as a symbol of divine protection, an engineering marvel celebrating human skill and spiritual power. Others speculate that the technique of making rust-resistant iron was a lost art, perhaps passed down from even older civilizations. Whatever the truth, the Iron Pillar of Delhi remains a silent testament to the ingenuity and craftsmanship of ancient India. It challenges us to rethink what was possible thousands of years ago, because in an age before electricity, modern tools, or industrial processes, they forged a pillar that would outlast empires, kings, and centuries. A pillar that still stands, unyielding to time itself. In the 1930s, near the ancient city of Baghdad, Iraq, archaeologists unearthed a curious artifact, a small clay jar, roughly the size of a modern soda can. Inside the jar was a copper cylinder encased in an iron rod, separated by an asphalt seal. At first glance, it seemed like an ordinary container. But then came a revolutionary idea. Could this be an ancient battery? Known today as the Baghdad battery, some researchers speculate that this device, dating back to around 200 BCE to 200 CE, was capable of generating a small electric current. Experiments have shown that when filled with an acidic liquid such as vinegar or lemon juice, the jar can produce low-voltage electricity, enough to power simple electroplating or other basic electrical processes. If true, it would rewrite history. Electricity, the lifeblood of our modern world, may have been known, harnessed, and used by ancient peoples long before we thought possible. But what for? Some suggest the battery was used for electroplating precious metals, giving jewelry and artifacts a thin layer of gold or silver. Others propose more mystical theories, that it powered religious or healing devices, or that it was a component of forgotten technology. Skeptics, however, caution that the battery theory is speculative. There's no direct evidence of wiring, electrical tools, or contemporary descriptions of electricity from that era. It could have been a simple storage vessel, a religious object, or even a coincidental assembly of parts. Yet the mystery remains. The Baghdad battery stands as a silent challenge. Was this a relic of lost knowledge, a hint of a forgotten era of science, or just an ordinary object misunderstood by modern eyes? Either way, it asks us to reconsider. How much do we truly know about the capabilities of ancient civilizations, and what other technologies lie buried, waiting to shock us out of our assumptions? Because sometimes the spark of discovery lies hidden in the smallest of jars. Nestled in the tranquil grounds of Shugborough Hall in Staffordshire, England, lies a monument that has puzzled cryptographers, historians, and treasure hunters for over 250 years. The Shepherd's Monument, a classical arch adorned with carved scenes from the famous painting The Shepherds of Arcadia, bears a mysterious inscription below. 5 enigmatic letters, Dozva VM, etched in stone. A simple code, a name, a secret message, no one knows. Despite countless attempts, the Shugborough inscription remains unbroken. From professional code breakers to amateur enthusiasts, from the days of the American Revolution to modern cryptographic software, no one has definitively cracked the puzzle. Some believe it is a cipher protecting a lost treasure, possibly linked to the legendary Holy Grail or the secrets of the Knights Templar. Others think it is a memorial code, a personal message by the monument's creators, intended only for a select few to understand. Then there are theories that connect the inscription to Masonic secrets, ancient esoteric knowledge, or a forgotten language lost to time. The lack of context makes it even more baffling. Unlike famous codes like the Rosetta Stone, which included translations, the Shugborough inscription stands alone, silent and unyielding. Its letters don't correspond neatly to known ciphers. Its pattern defies typical encryption methods of the 18th century, when the monument was built. Yet the monument's classical imagery hints at themes of life, death, and resurrection. Perhaps the inscription holds the key to a profound philosophical or spiritual secret. The Shugborough inscription is a Stone Age mystery, carved in an age of enlightenment. It reminds us that even in times of reason and revolution, there are still riddles that defy explanation. And sometimes the greatest secrets are written not in books or scrolls, but in the very stones that surround us, waiting patiently for the right mind to unlock them. In the arid valleys near Ica, Peru, thousands of strange stones were uncovered, each etched with intricate carvings depicting scenes that defy the timeline of known history. These are the Ica stones. On their surfaces, bizarre images come to life, humans interacting with dinosaurs, advanced surgical procedures, including brain surgery and organ transplants, depictions of space travel, telescopes, and complex machinery. To many, these stones tell a story radically different from mainstream archaeology. Could these carvings be evidence of an ancient civilization possessing advanced knowledge, or even proof that humans and dinosaurs coexisted? The stones were popularized by Dr. Javier Cabrera, a Peruvian physician who amassed a large collection starting in the 1960s. He claimed the stones were authentic artifacts passed down through generations, holding forgotten wisdom. Skeptics, however, quickly challenged the stones' authenticity. Many argue they are modern forgeries, created to attract tourists or to profit from sensationalism. Local villagers admitted to carving stones using modern tools, casting doubt on their legitimacy. Scientific tests have shown some stones are genuine fossils, but the carvings themselves lack dating confirmation. Regardless, the Sika stones spark a larger debate. They force us to question, what do we accept as truth? How much do we dismiss because it challenges established timelines? And what if the story of humanity is far more complex, filled with knowledge lost, erased, or misunderstood? The Ica stones remain controversial, a blend of fact, fiction, and mystery. A reminder that history is often written by those who control the narrative, and that sometimes the truth hides in plain sight, carved into stone. Whether ancient relics or elaborate hoaxes, the Ica stones continue to captivate and challenge us, because every carving, every line etched in rock is a question. And sometimes questions are the greatest treasures of all. Deep within the silent tombs of the Valley of the Kings, where pharaohs and nobles were laid to rest in eternal slumber, archaeologists uncovered a mystery unlike any other. They called him Unknown Man E. His tomb, small and unassuming, was discovered in 2000, containing only a few artifacts and an enigmatic mummy. But what made this burial extraordinary wasn't the treasures left behind, it was the mummy itself. Analysis revealed wounds inconsistent with typical funerary practices, trauma to the skull, signs of violence, evidence suggesting a brutal death. Some believe Unknown Man E was an assassination victim, perhaps a prince, a rival, or even a disgraced noble. Others speculate darker origins, an execution victim, a political pawn, or someone whose memory was deliberately erased. The mystery deepens when considering the tomb's location. Near the burial site of Tutankhamun, another young pharaoh surrounded by intrigue and conspiracy. Could Unknown Man E be linked to the turbulent court politics of the 18th dynasty? A forgotten player in the power struggles that defined one of Egypt's most enigmatic eras? But even after extensive forensic studies, his identity remains unknown. No inscriptions name him, no records tell his story. He is a ghost in a land of ghosts. Unknown Man E's silent tomb is a chilling reminder that history is often written by the victors. Some lives and deaths are deliberately hidden beneath layers of stone and time, and sometimes the dead whisper secrets we are not ready to hear. Because in the Valley of the Kings, not all who sleep are forgotten, but some are never meant to be found. He conquered half the known world, a warrior, a leader, a legend. His name, Genghis Khan. Founder of the Mongol Empire, the largest contiguous empire in history, his legacy reshaped continents, cultures, and the course of civilization. But after his death in 1227, Genghis Khan's final resting place vanished into shadow. The lost tomb of Genghis Khan remains one of history's greatest mysteries. According to Mongol tradition, the location of his grave was kept a closely guarded secret. Legends say that the funeral escort killed anyone they met on the path to the burial site. Rivers were diverted to hide the tomb. Horsemen trampled the ground to erase tracks. Despite centuries of searching, the tomb has never been found. Some believe it lies beneath the vast Mongolian steppes, hidden beneath miles of earth, waiting silently. Others suggest it was deliberately destroyed or concealed to prevent desecration. Archaeologists and treasure hunters have scoured the region with modern technology, satellite imaging, ground-penetrating radar, and drone surveys. Yet the tomb eludes them all. Why such secrecy? Was it the Mongols' way of honoring their greatest leader, or a fear that the tomb's discovery would unleash curses or political upheaval? Some fringe theories suggest the tomb contains artifacts beyond imagination, scrolls, treasures, even ancient knowledge that could rewrite history. The mystery of Genghis Khan's tomb is more than just a lost grave. It is a symbol of impermanence, of power buried beneath the sands of time, of a past that refuses to be uncovered. And perhaps that is how it was meant to be, because some legacies are not carved in stone, but hidden in silence, waiting for the right moment, if ever, to speak again. The lost tomb of Genghis Khan remains the greatest burial mystery of all time, a final enigma surrounding the man who shaped the world and then vanished without a trace. So now you've glimpsed the shadows of lost civilizations, uncovered mysteries hidden beneath oceans and deserts, and touched the edges of forgotten knowledge. But this journey isn't over. It's just beginning. The past is full of secrets waiting for curious minds like yours to explore. Every stone, every scroll, every artifact holds a story, a puzzle piece to the grand narrative of humanity. If this video sparked your imagination, your wonder, or your thirst for discovery, don't let it fade. Subscribe to the channel for more deep dives into ancient mysteries that challenge everything we think we know. Like this video if you believe that history still has many secrets left to reveal. Share it with friends who love a good mystery and crave the truth hidden beneath the sands of time. And if you want to support our work, get early access to videos, and watch ad-free, consider joining us on Patreon. Your support helps us bring these stories to life, one discovery at a time. Remember, history is not just what's written in books, it's what we seek beyond them. So keep asking questions, keep searching, because the greatest mysteries are still out there, waiting for you to uncover them. Thank you for watching. Until next time, stay curious and keep exploring.